You wonder again and again why love slips away like water through your hands. You wonder why every attempt to hold it leaves you emptier than before. Perhaps you have told yourself that destiny has been unfair, that others are cruel, that the world has simply given you the wrong cards. But Carl Jung would whisper a deeper truth. The reason you cannot find love is not fate, nor luck, nor the cruelty of others. It is something within you, something hidden, something buried. The love you fail to find is not absent in the world. It is absent in your relationship with yourself. And until you face that absence, every relationship will turn into a mirror of your wounds, rather than a sanctuary for your soul. In the beginning, before romance, before passion, before desire, there was childhood. There was the gaze of a parent, the warmth of a touch, or the silence of an absence. Love begins not in adulthood, but in the cradle, in the subtle messages received long before you understood words. Did they see you? Did they hold you when you cried? Did they allow you to be who you were? Or did they demand that you fit their vision? In these earliest exchanges, the first patterns of love were carved into your soul. And Jung reminds us, what you do not resolve in those early years, you will spend a lifetime unconsciously seeking to heal. This is why the same stories repeat themselves in your life. You may meet someone new, filled with hope that this time it will be different. Yet soon, the same arguments rise, the same distance grows, the same ache returns. And you ask yourself, how can this be? Why do I, again and again, end up in the same emotional prison? The answer is that you are not choosing freely. You are being chosen by your unconscious, by the shadow that guides you silently, by the unfinished stories of your childhood that demand completion. Until you bring those hidden patterns to the surface, you will continue to fall into them, calling them love, calling them destiny, when in fact they are repetition. Jung once said that what we call fate is often nothing more than our unconscious shaping our choices. Imagine that, every time you fell in love with someone who could not love you back, every time you felt invisible in a relationship, every time you found yourself abandoned, it may not have been bad luck. It may have been your psyche replaying the old wound of not being seen, of not being held, of not being enough. This repetition is not cruelty. It is your soul's attempt to heal by reenacting the wound, hoping for a different ending. But the truth is harsh. Without awareness, the ending is always the same. Think for a moment of the faces that still haunt your memory. The ones who left, the ones who betrayed, the ones who promised forever but gave you only silence. Each of them is a mirror of something inside you. Each of them touched a wound that was already there. The pain you felt in those relationships was not new, it was ancient. It belonged to the child you once were, still waiting for someone to prove that they are lovable. But no partner can heal that child. No romance can erase that memory. It is yours to face, yours to hold, yours to embrace. This is the uncomfortable truth. You cannot find love because you are searching in the wrong place. You are looking outward, when the search must begin inward. You are trying to find in another what you have not yet given yourself. Jung called this the shadow. All the parts of yourself you refuse to face, the anger you hide, the sadness you deny, the needs you bury. The shadow does not disappear when ignored, it grows stronger. It takes the wheel of your life, guiding you toward partners who reflect exactly what you do not want, simply because those are the lessons you refuse to learn. Imagine walking into a room filled with mirrors, but every mirror is covered with a thin veil. You move from one to another, lifting the veil slightly, hoping to see beauty, to see wholeness, to see completion. But each time, what you glimpse is distorted, incomplete, unsettling. And so you move on to the next mirror, and the next, never realizing that the distortion is not in the glass, it is in you. The reflections are not wrong, they are honest. They are showing you the parts of yourself you refuse to confront. That is what relationships do, they reveal the shadow. This is why Jung insisted that love cannot be found until it is first discovered within. To love another is to recognize yourself in them, but if you cannot embrace your own shadow, you will despise it when it appears in someone else. You may long for intimacy, but flee when it becomes too real. You may dream of unconditional love, but sabotage it the moment it demands vulnerability. You may cry out for loyalty, but find yourself drawn to those who cannot stay. Each contradiction is the voice of the unconscious, playing out the old scripts you have never dared to rewrite. Consider the person who always chases unavailable partners. Friends may ask, "Why do you keep choosing the wrong one?" But it is not a conscious choice. The psyche is seeking out the old wound of abandonment, hoping this time it will be healed. Yet the healing never comes because the wound has not been faced directly. Or think of the one who constantly feels unworthy of love. They may attract partners who confirm that belief, who treat them as less, who leave them in the shadows. It is not cruelty of the world. It is the shadow within, orchestrating the dance of repetition. The truth about why you can't find love, Jung would say, is that you have not yet found yourself. You are still hiding from the very parts of you that most need love. And until you learn to embrace them, you will search in vain for someone else to do it for you. You will mistake intensity for intimacy, fantasy for reality, longing for love. And each disappointment will cut deeper until you finally realize that the search must turn inward. But here is the paradox. The moment you stop demanding that another person heal your wounds, love becomes possible. When you no longer see relationships as salvation, you begin to see them as what they truly are: mirrors, companions, invitations to growth. The partner who stays is not the one who completes you, but the one who walks with you as you complete yourself. And the partner who leaves is not proof that you are unlovable, but proof that the wound inside still seeks your attention. Carl Jung believed that the greatest task of life is individuation, the process of becoming whole, of uniting the conscious and the unconscious, of embracing both light and shadow. And until this process begins, love will remain elusive. Because love is not something you find, it is something you are. It is the wholeness within that allows you to recognize wholeness in another. Without that, every romance is just projection, every heartbreak is just repetition, every longing is just a cry of the child within. So the first truth is this: you cannot find love because you have not yet faced the shadow that shapes your choices. Until you do, love will remain just beyond your grasp, appearing and disappearing like a mirage. But once you turn inward, once you begin the journey of facing what you have denied, everything changes. The world does not change, but your eyes do. And when your eyes change, so does the love you attract, so does the love you allow, so does the love you keep. When Carl Jung spoke about love, he often warned that what we see in the other is rarely about the other. It is about us. Love begins as projection. We take the hidden images within our unconscious, our longings, our wounds, our ideals, and we paint them onto another person. We believe we have discovered the one, but in truth, we have discovered a mirror. This mirror is not false, but it is incomplete. It shows us parts of ourselves that we are not yet ready to own. And so, relationships become a theater where the shadow performs, where the unconscious whispers its secrets through the roles we assign to those we claim to love. Think about the times you were swept away by passion, convinced that destiny had finally brought you what you had been waiting for. The person seemed perfect, as if they were made for you. They carried qualities that enchanted you, healed you, completed you. But with time, the enchantment faded. Flaws appeared, irritation replaced adoration, disappointment took the place of wonder. This is the process Jung described, the collapse of projection. What you adored in the other was often something you had disowned in yourself. What you began to despise in them was often a part of your own shadow. Love turned sour because you mistook projection for reality. The shadow does not only hide what you consider bad. It also hides what you believe you are unworthy of. Perhaps you always admired strength in others, but never dared to be strong yourself. Perhaps you desired freedom, but repressed it out of fear. Perhaps you longed for tenderness, but learned to hide your vulnerability. These qualities, buried in the shadow, are projected onto your partners. You adore them for carrying what you cannot, but eventually, the imbalance suffocates the relationship. The truth about why you can't find love is that you are not meeting the other person, you are meeting your own projections. And no projection can sustain the weight of real intimacy. Jung explained that the unconscious seeks balance. If you repress something, life will find a way to bring it back through external circumstances. In relationships, This means you will attract not who you want, but who reflects what you need to confront. If you deny your anger, you may end up with someone who explodes with rage. If you bury your vulnerability, you may fall for someone who seems cold and distant. If you hide your need for care, you may chase those who are emotionally unavailable. The outer relationship is a stage where the inner conflict plays itself out. Until you resolve the conflict within, the cycle repeats. Consider the story of a woman who was constantly drawn to controlling partners. Each relationship left her feeling powerless, voiceless, small. She believed that men were simply cruel, that she had bad luck. But therapy revealed that in childhood, she had a father who silenced her voice, who dismissed her feelings, who demanded obedience. Her unconscious was trying to replay that story, hoping to finally overcome it. Yet until she recognized the pattern, she was destined to repeat it. Jung's words echo here: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The same is true for those who are terrified of abandonment. They cling to relationships, they chase, they beg for love, but again and again, they are left behind. To the conscious mind, it feels like cruelty. But the unconscious is reenacting the original abandonment. The mother who was unavailable, the father who walked away, the caregiver who was distracted. Each partner becomes a symbol, not a person, and the story cannot end until the inner wound is faced. That is the truth no one wants to hear. You cannot find love because you are looking for someone to fix what only you can heal. And then there is the anima and animus, Jung's description of the inner feminine in men and the inner masculine in women. These archetypal forces shape how we experience love. A man may project his anima, his inner feminine, onto a woman, believing she will complete him. A woman may project her animus, her inner masculine, onto a man, believing he will give her strength or direction. These projections create infatuation, passion, obsession, but also disappointment. Because no one can embody the archetype perfectly, the partner inevitably fails to live up to the image, and the relationship collapses under the weight of unmet expectations. Jung insisted that the task of love is not to find someone who carries your anima or animus, but to integrate it within yourself. When a man learns to embrace his sensitivity, his intuition, his capacity for tenderness, he is no longer enslaved by the need to find a woman to carry it for him. When a woman learns to embrace her strength, her reason, her capacity for direction, she is no longer trapped in the fantasy of a man who will complete her. Only then can love become a meeting of two wholes, rather than a desperate search for completion. The shadow also explains why toxic relationships can feel irresistible. Have you ever wondered why people stay with those who hurt them? Why they return, again and again, to situations that destroy them? The answer lies in the unconscious bond. The abuser represents a piece of the shadow, a wound too painful to face directly. The victim hopes that by enduring, by staying, by giving more love, the wound will finally be healed. But this hope is an illusion. The healing can only begin when the person turns inward, when they recognize that the attraction is not to the abuser but to the unfinished story within themselves. The repetition is not random. Jung called it the compulsion to repeat. It is as if the soul refuses to move forward until the lesson is learned. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment is not meaningless. It is a message. It says, here is your wound. Here is your shadow. Here is what you must face. If you do not, you will meet it again in another face, another body, another heartbreak. And so life becomes a cycle until you dare to break it. Perhaps you have felt this yourself, that eerie sense of déjà vu in love. Different names, different faces, but the same story, the same ending. The unconscious is stubborn. It will not let go until it is acknowledged. And the only way out is through awareness. When you begin to see the pattern, you take the first step toward freedom. When you admit that the problem is not out there, but in here, you reclaim your power. Love stops being a desperate chase and becomes an inner journey. The truth about why you cannot find love, then, is not that you are unworthy or cursed. It is that you are unconscious. You are acting out stories that were written long before you knew you were alive. You are searching for healing in another's arms, when the healing waits within your own embrace. And until you awaken to this, every partner will be another character in the same play, another mask of the same wound. But the moment you turn inward, the play changes. You begin to notice your projections, to ask, am I seeing this person, or am I seeing my shadow reflected? You begin to recognize your patterns. Why do I feel drawn to this type of person again and again? You begin to understand that your longing for love is really a longing for wholeness, for reconciliation with the lost parts of yourself. And in that awareness, a door opens. Jung wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This transformation cannot happen if you are clinging to projections, if you are blind to your shadow, if you are trapped in repetition. But when you see clearly, when you embrace your unconscious, then love becomes what it was meant to be, not an escape, but a sacred fire that burns away illusions and reveals truth. So, if you ask again why you cannot find love, the answer is no longer mysterious. It is not about luck, or timing, or destiny. It is about the shadow you ignore, the projections you chase, the wounds you repeat. To change your love life, you must change your inner life. To attract different partners, you must confront different parts of yourself. This is the second truth, the deeper layer of the mystery. Love will not be found until you stop running from the very places within you where it hides. If the truth about why you cannot find love lies in the shadow, in the wounds you have refused to face, then the path forward must begin not with chasing another person, but with turning toward yourself. Jung called this the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming real. It is about looking into the hidden corners of your soul and saying, yes, this too is me. It is about walking into the darkness with courage and discovering that what you feared was not a monster, but a part of your own forgotten self waiting to be embraced. This journey begins in silence. It begins when you stop distracting yourself with endless searches, endless fantasies, endless noise. Sit with your loneliness. Do not run from it. Do not mask it with another hurried romance or with shallow distractions. For in that loneliness lies the child within you, the one who was once unseen, unheard, unloved. To sit with loneliness is to sit with that child, to finally say, I see you. I hear you. I will not abandon you again. And when you can offer that love to yourself, you no longer demand it desperately from others. Facing the shadow is never easy. You will encounter anger, envy, shame, grief, all the feelings you buried because they seemed unacceptable. Yet Jung taught that what you resist not only persists, it grows stronger. By resisting these parts of yourself, you gave them power over your life. By embracing them, you reclaim that power. You begin to see that your anger is not only destruction, it is the voice of your boundaries. Your sadness is not only weakness, it is the depth of your heart. Your fear is not only limitation, it is the signal of what truly matters to you. Every shadow, once faced, becomes a source of strength. And when you embrace your own shadow, something miraculous happens. You stop being terrified of the shadow in others. Love no longer demands perfection. It becomes spacious, compassionate, forgiving. Instead of projecting your wounds onto your partner, you can recognize them for who they are, another human being, carrying their own shadows, their own battles. You no longer need them to complete you, because you have begun the work of completion within yourself. In this space, intimacy can finally breathe. Two whole beings can meet, not as saviors, not as enemies, but as companions on the same path of wholeness. The individuation process also dissolves illusions. You stop expecting fairy tales. You stop believing that passion without depth is love. You stop mistaking control for security or abandonment for fate. Instead, you begin to recognize love in its true form, not possession, but freedom, not perfection, but authenticity, not salvation, but transformation. Love becomes less about losing yourself in another, and more about finding yourself more deeply through the encounter. Consider this: when you stop demanding that love erase your loneliness, you become capable of sharing love, not consuming it. When you stop seeking a rescuer, you become ready for a partner. When you stop denying your own darkness, you become able to stand in the light of someone else's truth without fear. This is the paradox of Jung's psychology. Love comes not when you run from yourself, but when you finally return to yourself. The work is gradual. You will not heal overnight. The wounds of childhood do not vanish with a single insight. But each act of awareness, each step toward embracing your shadow, shifts the pattern. Where once you were drawn compulsively to toxic partners, you begin to notice the red flags and walk away. Where once you sabotaged closeness, you begin to allow yourself to be seen. Where once you collapsed into despair when abandoned, you begin to find strength in your own presence. Slowly the cycle breaks. Slowly you become free. And in that freedom, love ceases to be a desperate search. It becomes a gift, an echo of the inner transformation you have already begun. The partner who arrives is no longer there to heal your wounds, but to walk beside you as you heal them yourself. The relationship becomes not a repetition of the past, but a creation of something new. This is what Jung meant when he said that real love transforms both people. Transformation can only occur when two souls meet as they truly are, without masks, without projections, without the desperate hunger of unfinished wounds. So the truth about why you cannot find love is not a curse. It is not because you are broken beyond repair. It is because love was never meant to be found outside first. Love was always meant to be awakened inside. The partners who disappointed you, the heartbreaks that crushed you, the loneliness that haunted you, all of these were not punishments. They were invitations. Invitations to face yourself, to heal, to become whole. And once you accept that invitation, everything changes. Imagine the moment when you no longer chase love but attract it naturally, simply by being yourself. Imagine the moment when you are no longer afraid of rejection, because you no longer reject yourself. Imagine the moment when you meet another, not with the burden of your projections, but with the openness of your soul. That is when love ceases to be a painful search and becomes a sacred encounter. That is when the truth sets you free. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Yet it is also the most liberating. To accept yourself completely is to become whole. And when you are whole, love is no longer something you hunt for in others. It is something you carry within, and in carrying it, you recognize it when it appears outside. Then, finally, you will not lose it because it is no longer dependent on the other, it is rooted in you." So if you are still asking why you cannot find love, perhaps it is time to stop searching outward. Perhaps it is time to turn inward, to face the shadow, to embrace the forgotten child within, to walk the path of individuation. The truth is that love has been waiting for you all along, not in someone else's arms, but in the depths of your own soul. And when you discover it there, you will see that every heartbreak, every loss, every repetition was leading you to this moment of awakening. And in that awakening, love will no longer be a mystery, nor a wound, nor a chase. It will be the natural expression of a soul that has finally come home to itself. And that, Jung would say, is the beginning of true love, not in the desperate search for another, but in the sacred recognition of yourself.